Hi, it's Amy again with the Hag Reads. You may not watch these one after the other. You may wait a few days because my videos always run long, and I'm not going to apologize for it. That's just how I roll. That's how I roll, I guess. I just tried to film this, and I adjusted my screen and dropped it closed, and the video stopped, so now I have to do it again. Now I have to relive how much I didn't like my first book. This weekly wrap-up covers last week, which is June 19th through June 25th, and I read 5 books, 2 adult fiction and 3 YA. The first adult fiction book was Guilty Pleasures, which is the first book in the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series by Laura K. Hamilton, and I hated this book with a passion. I didn't like the main character. I didn't like any of the side characters. I wish they had all killed each other and the book was over. I have never said this about a book series before. I will slog through even when I'm kind of not liking it anymore because I feel, well, because there's a part of me I have to know how it ends. I don't. But with this book, I don't care how it ends. I don't want to read anymore. I don't want to know any more about these characters. I don't want to get to know them better. I just don't care. Now, I do realize that this series by Anita Blake, a lot of urban fantasy and paranormal romance writers who've come into the genre, now that it's no longer brand new, it's been around for, a few, maybe 10 years, 5 years. It's been around long enough that people know what it is now. I know a number of years ago that urban fantasy was not a thing, and works that fit into that category had a hard time getting published, or when they did, you couldn't find them because they were hard to place in a genre. So I know that this was an inspirational work for a good many writers and that a lot of people love this series. I just don't. It is only a 300-page book, and I had to force myself to finish reading it. I didn't like Anita Blake. I felt like we didn't get to know any of her friends at all. There's, I don't think I'm giving away a whole lot when I say that she's got this best friend who's going to be getting married, and she didn't seem to be very aware that this friend was getting married. And this other person who she'd never met called her to set up the bachelorette party, but it just wound up being the 3 of them. And they show up to Guilty Pleasures, and Anita Blake knows what kind of place it is. This is supposed to be her really good friend, whom she spends the rest of the book trying to keep from coming under a vampire's total and permanent thrall. A carrot that is being strung before her to do all of these horrible things that she doesn't want to do, and to be a part of this world that she doesn't really fully want to be a part of. But there they are in the parking lot. She realizes where they are. She doesn't know this other person very well, and who seems to be behaving a little bit strangely. And she just goes along with this, allowing the 3 of them into this vampire club. And I feel like that was the moment, if that's your best friend and you know what this place is and what these vampires are capable of, and she does, according to the further in the book, she does know what they're capable of, she lets her friend go in there with this woman who is a co-worker whom she doesn't know at all, and she just goes along with it. I feel like she made bad decisions throughout. I feel like they were not justified. I feel like if this were really her best friend, she wouldn't have allowed this to happen in the first place. But I feel like she compromised herself in so many ways just from the get-go. Like, I couldn't like her, and I couldn't like any of her friends or her co-workers or the people that she knew, because we were dropped into the middle of the story, which I applaud. I like that there wasn't 300 pages of exposition and backstory so that we could get up to speed with her life. But you're supposed to dribble that into the introduction and the interactions with the characters if you don't do that, you know, and I prefer you don't do that huge data dump at the beginning. But it's not dribbled in there. I don't understand why they're friends. I don't know where they met each other, how long they've known each other. None of that was really came to the forefront. Why they're such good friends that she feels like she needs to put her life on the line for this person. You know, and I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy this book or you're a horrible person or you have shitty taste if you love this book. I'm just saying this book and this series is not for me, and I will not pick up another one. And I'm kind of sorry I read this one. This exemplifies everything that I don't like about urban fantasy, paranormal romance. All of the controlling, rapey kind of things that are clearly going on. I don't like any of that, and I don't think it's necessary. Certainly as part of the genre, I know some people don't like that, and it's not a trigger for me. I just don't think that every urban fantasy / paranormal romance needs to be so incredibly rapey with male characters being the pinnacle and female characters who are dressed like sluts and promiscuous, and you know, I think it can be done better, and I will discuss in my next week's video when I do the next Mondays for a book I read this week in a trilogy that is not necessarily urban fantasy, but it is a paranormal romance, and I think it's done well with humor, even though it touches on abuse and control issues. I read that book and enjoyed it so much more than I did this, and so I will discuss that next week, but it can be done well, and it doesn't have to be like this. For me, this just isn't it. But if this was an inspiration for you, or if you love this book, I am happy for you. Whatever you read and you love is great, just not for me. Second book is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and this made up for all the things I didn't like about the first book. My only complaint about this is I felt like there was so much at the beginning to set up the post-apocalyptic world, the game structure, and how it's such an integral part of everyday life. But I think we've already been primed for that by several books that came before this and movies. You know, I think this particular type of topic has been covered well enough that we didn't need quite so much descriptive writing about the world itself and why it's such an escape for people from their real lives. I enjoyed all the characters. I even enjoyed the kind of Matrix-y sameness of the villains from the IO Corporation. I really got a kick out of the whole thing. And I was a teenager in the 80s. I was born in 1971. I was 16 in 1987 or 1988. You know, I was 16, 17 around then. So most of the stuff that they're talking about, I remember vividly. So yeah, definitely. I really like this one. I would recommend it if you like the 80s or you're into kind of dystopian fantasy. This is a book aimed at adults. It didn't say teen on the spine, but I think older young adult readers, 16, 17, 18, there's not any explicit sex in this, so I think it would be fine for older teen readers, even advanced middle grade readers, possibly maybe as 14 or so, depending on how advanced they are in their reading. But it was definitely, I gave that one 4 stars. My first YA book for this week of the 19th through the 25th, The Wish Granter by C.J. Redwine, which is the second book in the Ravenspire series. And I think I said before when I talked about the first book, this book or this series really reminds me of the show Once Upon a Time, which I watched on Netflix. And I think there are 5 or 6 seasons that are available on Netflix, and that's all I watched. I don't know if the show is over or not, or if the last season, if it is over, has appeared on Netflix. But of what I watched, these are very evocative of that. And I did not check the dates, but I'm almost certain that this book series was published after the TV show came out. And so I think possibly some of the inspiration for this book series came from that TV show. And I like the characters better in these books. This one, The Wish Granter, is about a Rumpelstiltskin character. I bit the back of my tongue and I'm having trouble enunciating right now. And they use that spinning straw into gold, the 3 wishes kind of thing, as his backstory for why he is the way he is now. And it's a fairly compelling story. He is a bad guy in the way that Rumpelstiltskin in the Once Upon a Time series is a bad guy. He is out for himself, and he is not a nice guy. The hero and the heroine is a princess, and the hero is from the poor part of town, and so they make an unlikely duo. And her brother, the prince, is now the king, and so one of them has made a deal, and it's interesting to see how it plays out, how she uses her cleverness. She's somewhat of a victim, but she's also, I think, a fairly strong character, and I think that she works very hard to get herself out of these situations. And they keep referencing the fact that she is full-figured, and in some of the scenes where she's fighting with others, the men who are fighting with her call her fat. So this is not, I think, a stereotypical skinny princess. She likes to eat. She likes food. She's not, she's described as full-figured, and when it comes down to it, the male characters who she irks, poke it with a stick. If a woman's fat, you gotta tell her she's fat like she doesn't know it. We all know, trust us. So I'm really enjoying that series. One of the things I didn't like about Once Upon a Time, by the time I reached whatever the series, last series that's available, or the last season that's available on Netflix, I can't stand the Snows. I really dislike them in that show by that time. I much prefer the villain characters. The side characters are even more interesting. They're just so... You can predict what they are going to do beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I'm so tired of listening to Snow White whine about everything. I would like to punch her in the face several times. And her husband, too. Second YA book, Conspiracy of Blood and Smoke, which is the concluding volume in the duology. The first book was Prisoner of Night and Fog, and this is set in World War II. The main character was in the elite inner circle of Hitler's men. She was the daughter of one of his supporters who was very close to him. And she grew up as he was rising to power. And so this is the second book, and like the first book in the Dark Unwinding series, and then followed by the second book where the guy goes away and the girl runs off to save him. This is the same kind of thing, only it's slightly more well done. I was so annoyed by the second book in the Dark Unwinding series, that I think I gave it 2 stars, because of course what you want to do is a guy has gone off to do the right thing. Whatever he has to do, because that's his duty, whether it's be a soldier or whatever. The answer is always to put yourself in danger when he would have wanted you to stay safe, and to put both of you in more danger by being a duo that draws a lot of attention. And this wasn't quite as bad as that, but it still had those same elements. What situation is made better by putting yourself in danger of both of you being killed because you've been stupid enough to run off after him thinking he can't take care of himself, and there's no way that he can get through this situation on his own unless you, the brave and, spunky heroine, runs after him stupidly. The first book was really good and I really enjoyed it. And I just feel like this didn't do a whole lot more except provide a lot of tension and drama that could have been avoided if she had just stayed put. I think he would have got out of the situation on his own. The last book I read, which was YA, is The Infinite Sea, which is the second book in the 5th wave. And just like the book I talked about in my last video, what was it? I can do this, I swear I can. The Burning World. This is the second book. It's full of all kinds of drama and exposition, and it's supposed to be the part of the character arc, and we see backstories and things from various points of view. And there is a third book in the series, and I think it is the conclusion of the trilogy. This is another second book that I feel like didn't need to exist. This all could have been in the first book, or it could have been split between 2 books. There's no reason for this to be 3 books. This is a completely unresolved pile of a hot mess that raises more questions than it answers, and it's just people running around doing stupid things that don't really solve anything, in my opinion. And that is the end of my reading for this week. I did not enjoy it, but I feel like if you're looking at a trilogy overall, and I haven't read the 3rd part yet, but I just feel like a lot of trilogies now are having this middle book that doesn't really do anything except stir up a bunch of drama that could have been the ending part of the second book and the first part of the third, or the ending part of the first book and the beginning part of the second book. This book didn't need to exist at all. It serves no real purpose. It doesn't drive the story very much farther, and I think it could have been split better. But a trilogy, you get that second book to charge more money. And you may feel differently about this kind of second book where it's all just chaos and drama, but I find it kind of frustrating that we can't end with just the first book, or we can't make a duology that's slightly more compact, that we have to have this middle volume that serves no real purpose, because when you get to the resolution, all of the things that happen in that second book often have nothing to do with anything at the conclusion. This was all just filler. I feel like it was all filler. My last thing that I wanted to get to, I don't know how many people are in hot areas, but we have been, last week we had a week of 115 and above, topping out at a day with 120 degree temperatures. And so we don't cook very much. We eat a lot of fruit at that time. A lot of edamame and vegetables you can eat cold. We eat a lot of hummus on pita flatbread. But I have this one recipe that I've had for about 4 or 5 summers now. And I got it on the Taste of Home website. And the name of the recipe is Thai chicken lettuce wrap recipe. And I will try and remember to put a link in the description box. But it takes, aside from baking the chicken, which you can do late at night or early in the morning, we don't ever turn on the oven in the middle of the day here for anything. But the filling for the lettuce wraps can be done ahead of time. It's good warm out of the pan. It's good, just warmed up to not piping hot because it's summer. But it's also good cold out of the refrigerator on the lettuce. It uses butter lettuce, which makes an excellent wrap. It tastes good. It's very pliable. The recipe itself is very simple. If you already have chicken that's cooked. This calls for chicken breast only, but I have used all of the meat. Like, I have roasted a whole chicken, or we have bought, you know, a chicken at Fry's, the prepackaged, and just tore all the meat off it. And I have just used chicken breast, and I have used legs, and I have used legs and thighs. It doesn't, I prefer breast meat, light meat. I'm not a big fan of dark meat, but it's frequently cheaper. So, I buy whatever is inexpensive, and I have used this recipe. We eat it all summer long. My son loves it because when he comes home from work, he can throw some of that into a butter lettuce leaf and eat it, and it doesn't require any very much effort. There's no heat up if he doesn't want to. And if I'm already in bed, he doesn't have to worry about waking me up. But he almost always comes home from work. And even at night here, when we get into the crux of the summer, at the middle point of July through probably sometime in September, the nighttime temperatures don't drop down into the 80s like they are right now. They stay 95, 98. You know, they stay in the like 93 and above, and most often over 95, even at like 11 at night and 3 in the morning. So he'll get home from work and he rides his bike home. We don't have a car. And he'll be hot, and he'll take a cold shower, and then he'll have this cold food. If you live in a hot place, or you just don't like to cook very much in the summer, you can easily double, triple, or even quadruple this recipe, which I often do in the summer, and we just buy fresh heads of butter lettuce every few days, and it's super tasty. It's a little bit spicy, but you can adjust the spice to your thing. But after the chicken part of it is taken care of, it literally takes less than 15 minutes to put together. And once it's put together, if you have, you know, it says 6 servings, and we normally get, for the 2 of us, 3 servings out of it, because we won't eat a side dish with this. We'll just have 2 of the butter lettuce wraps, and that's a meal for us. For a snack, 1. For a light meal, or if we're having sides like additional, you know, sugar snap peas or edamame or something, we'll just have 1. But once I make like a quadruple batch, it lasts about a week, maybe a little more for the 2 of us. And I have not served this to anybody who did not love it. This is the picture, the little tiny picture. But I will include a link in the down bar. Super easy. If you live someplace hot and you don't want to cook, I highly recommend this. We eat it all summer, and it is fantastic. And I have run late again because I've been babbling about the heat and some food we like. Still loving this tea, by the way, that I showed you the box of a few weeks ago. This is the best green tea that I have tried, and I've tried 3 or 4 kinds now. I love the light mint of it, and I figured out a dilution rate. I do a big glass mason jar, and then I pour it into this container, half water, half tea, and it's perfect. I would not dilute it like that if I was having it hot, but so those 2 things, yay, are helping me kick the heat down a notch internally. Thank you if you have watched all the way to the end. I appreciate it. I will see you all on Friday for a library haul and little tiny actual book haul. Happy whatever time of day it is for you, and have a fantastic rest of the week. I hope that it is not too hot where you are, or too humid, because at least when it's hot here, it's not humid for the most part. We haven't had very good monsoon seasons the last couple of years, so we have not been having much in the way of humidity. But I lived in South Carolina for a number of years, in Columbia. Ooh, that humidity is far worse than the dry heat we get here. So as much as I don't like it, I like that it's a dry heat. Bye!